Hello everybody, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be continuing our look at the ships for the Salvage for Victory event here held in 15.0. This is the Salvage for Victory event that is the crown jewel at the end, being the Sarkouf. And today we're on the second ship that is obtainable in this, I guess, progression line, which being the Tier 8 light cruiser or Pan-Asian light cruiser, the Narai. Guys, I'm going to keep this one short and simple for all of you, and whether or not you're out there questioning whether or not this ship is worth it, should I pick this ship up? Some of you are looking at it, you're sitting on potentially a shit ton of coal, and you're thinking, hey, I'm not necessarily interested in subs, but are the other three ships worth it? That's kind of what I'm doing here, what my main focus on, and me being a light cruiser enthusiast, or just cruiser enthusiast in general, let's be honest, let's be real. You know, this one caught my eye because if you haven't noticed, this hull looks very similar. Just like the Clona, we had a copy pasta with some armor changes, minuscule, to the Caratrulio Tier 7 Italian battleship, up tier to Tier 8, hence the Clona. Now we're looking at another copy pasta hull, which is the Tiger 59, the infamous, the legendary Tiger 59. If you don't know about the Tiger 59, it is a Tier 8 light cruiser for the Royal Navy who has two Minotaur turrets, just like you see here on the Narai, who has pretty damn good reload at, what is it, 2.9 seconds, something like that. It has radar, it has smoke, has improved acceleration, and it has a heal. Super heal, I think, right? Or just a heal, one of the two. And that's it. That's all it has. No torpedoes, no nothing. Two guns, by the way, just like you see like on Groningen and stuff like that. But these are 152mm guns, not 127s or 130s or 120s or whatever that ship has. Not a whole lot of DPM, right? I think we're sitting at, with the Narai, we're sitting at like 173,000 HE DPM, for an example. But the Tiger 59 has access only to the short-fused Royal Navy AP, right? Which is a pro and a con, depending on how, you know, wherever you sit with that. But now Wargaming has taken that hull and that ship and has altered it a few ways, giving this a plus 30% engine boost, emergency engine boost, speed boost, a super heal, the access to high explosive shells, and a 5.5 kilometer hydroacoustic search, similar to that what you'd find on the Loyang, for an example, right? And that's the Narai. That's the package they're advertising. And I guess maybe they're thinking this looks intriguing to a lot of players. I'm going to be honest with you guys. There are only two ways that you are picking up this ship. One, if you're going all in on the Sarkouf and you're like, fuck it, this is the ship I have to get past in order to continue down the Salvage for Victory line. So you pick this ship up in the meantime and don't even give it a second thought. That's one. The second one is you want the Zarya Bardi or whatever the hell the like up-tiered Vladivostok is, which we'll take a look at in a later date, which is the third ship down the line. And you want to get that ship really, really badly. So you're going to have to get this ship because this is one right before that. That's honestly the two reasons. I don't see anybody really going out of their way saying, wow, I really want the Narai. Yes, unless you're a diehard fan of the Tiger 59, so we'll go ahead and add, I guess, a third caveat here. If you're a diehard fan of the Tiger 59 and you really like the hull, the way the ship plays, all that, I don't know if I would ask what your mental status is if you are. But if you do like that play style, then maybe this ship is the, you know, next ship for you, okay? And I'll make sure to try to answer this to the best of my abilities and highlight the pros, as few of them that there are, and if certainly I will advertise the cons on this thing. So whether or not you can make to the conclusion or come to the conclusion whether or not this ship is calling your name here in the Salvage for Victory event. If you are planning on spending coal for the ship and not putting any boosters, that being blue or red, towards the event, this ship is going to run you 384,000 coal. That is a hefty price, guys. And right off the gates, I'm going to tell you that this ship is not worth that. Okay, I would rather you spend that coal on anything else other than this ship. Hell, the defense is what, about 40,000 more coal than this ship. I'd rather you take that coal if you don't have the defense and buy the defense. I have a full review of the defense I did on this channel a couple months back. I wouldn't recommend it for the coal price, but compared to this head to head, yeah, I would say you might as well go with the defense. But we're not talking about the defense. We're talking about the Narai here. So I talked about the coal price about her. I talked about some of her pros and what she's bringing to the table that differentiates her from the Tiger 59. Okay, and as you know, there are some changes, and there's some more changes that I'm going to go over to here. But like I always do in these ship analysis videos, I am going to go down, kind of unearth the statistics, look under the hood for you, talk a bit about the ship, and then I'll go ahead and follow up on some gameplay on her, going over the tips and tricks I have and how to make this ship work. Because guys, I'll be honest with you, this ship really does struggle at times for sure, unless you are in a top tier matchup. But like I talked about with the Kelowna, Tier 8 ships these days are finding themselves in Tier 9 and Tier 10 games, so it's really hard to sit here and justify recommending these ships unless you're okay with that. So that should be the first thing you have to understand, is that you're going to have to come to the conclusion that you're going to be up-tiered quite a bit with this ship, okay? Starting off, we are going to be looking at the armor layout of the Narai. And this is actually going to be just like the Tiger 59. It's going to differentiate itself from other, tech line light cruisers that you would find like in the Royal Navy branch, because the Tiger 59, many people don't know, actually comes with a 25mm nose, not the customary 16mm nose, right? So you have a 25mm nose, you have a 25mm ass, your deck is coming in around 27mm. And then if we strip away the armor plating, I'll go ahead and show the belt armor real quick. Upper belt 25, 83 on the plating there as well. And then we go ahead and look at the Citadel, which is massive, which is coming in at that 83 as well. Not a hard ship to Citadel, guys. And there is one thing that this ship screams, which is overmatch. 380mm guns will go ahead and cut right through this 25mm plating. So this ship does take Citadels left, right, and center. And then obviously it does have some immunity to plunging fire overmatch from 380mm guns. But then again, 406s look at you, it's going right through you, right? Like a hot knife through butter. This is the kind of, thing we like to compare it to here. Moving on to the survivability, 33, 100 for your hit points with only a measly 4% torpedo protection damage reduction or whatever. Again, you're a light cruiser. You shouldn't be taking torpedoes anyways. You have enough utility that should help you prevent, eating damage, right? And again, moving into the infamous powerful 152mm artillery on this thing, you have the 2x2 152s reloading in 2.9 seconds, 180-degree turn time of 4.7. Keep in mind that both turrets do rotate 360 degrees, so it is easier to keep both your turrets to bear on the target as you so choose while you are evading incoming shells, because evading you must. Maximum dispersion, though, is 66mm, which is super nice, guys. And I do want to talk about the main battery just a little bit more. The Sigma is 2.0, and you do pick up, I believe this is destroyer dispersion, if I'm not wrong. Please correct me. Again, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I believe this is destroyer levels of dispersion, so your shells generally should be going pinpoint right where you want them to go. Again, though, just because I say pinpoint, you will have that wonky salvo every now and then, but hell, you're getting out 4 shells every 2.9 seconds. Really not that big of a concern. Okay, maximum range, though, is actually pretty nice at 16 kilometers, which, again, you're going to need that because of the way this ship is going to want to play and where it's going to want to play as well, or at least where I found the most success with this ship. High explosive shells, which are nice. You pick that up. It is a big difference from the Tiger 59. As you know, high explosive shells are, I guess, widely renowned as being a little bit more universal, a little bit more easier to use, even against angled targets. You're still getting some penetration damage or splash damage, and theoretically setting fires, which is going to translate to damage over time, which is always nice. Ships that have access to HE are always going to be easier theoretically to play than AP focused ships. I do love the Minotaur. I'm a big Minotaur lover, but that's just a fact. They're easier to use. I don't have to really pinpoint specific parts of the ship unless I am trying to do damage. Then I'm hitting usually superstructure. Armor penetration capability is 30 millimeters, which is nice, and then the shell velocity is 768 meters a second. Again, you're going to have to factor this in, maybe scroll out once on your mouse wheel, especially if you're pushing 14, 15, 16 kilometers while you're firing. These shells do become kind of lofty if you are pushing out to those ranges. Armor piercing is coming in at 3,000 as a maximum damage, and then that shell velocity is matching that of your high explosive. One thing to keep in mind, though, with the Narai here that I have noticed is your gun firing angles. As you do have 360-degree turrets, your gun firing angles are okay, but I'm not going to sit here and say they're anything great. I mean, this ship is going to eat citadels. I already showed you the armor scheme, but another rule of thumb that you might want to keep in the back of your mind is when you are angled like that, you're trying to bait people to shooting your belt armor. And your belt armor, if you don't know, with the thickness, it's the 30 degrees auto ricochet angles. That's basically what you're banking on, because if they don't hit that and you're, let's say, over angled, or if you're not angled enough, yeah, you're probably going to get citadeled and sent back to port. This ship does get absolutely devastated if you are caught out, especially any large caliber armor piercing or ships that have improved ricochet firing angles or angles on their armor piercing, like Baltimore and Buffalo and all that. Yeah, they really will eat this thing up, because then you basically are down to one turret shooting in the front, and if you get the one turret knocked out, well, then you're shit out of luck. Really not a big fan of this ship, as you can kind of imagine, right? You get airstrikes, not depth charges. AA defense, not going to talk too much about this. I would not bank on this anti-aircraft suite. It's really not going to do much for you guys, and it's matter of fact, you're going to be basically fodder for any tier 8 or tier 10 aircraft carrier. Tier 6, I can see shooting down the planes and being able to withstand a little bit of that punishment that they're going to inevitably be able to dish out. But when it comes to tier 8 and tier 10 aircraft carriers, no way, Jose. Moving into the maneuverability, 30. I want to make sure that I don't have the signal flags on. Okay, I don't. 30, just about 30 and some change knots, top speed, 590 meter turning circle radius with a rudder shift time of 7.8 seconds. One thing to keep in mind is you don't actually get access to the improved acceleration that the Tiger 59 has. The Tiger 59 has an acceleration from stop to, like complete stop to starting, going full engine speed, is 8.6 seconds. Yeah, the Narai is coming in at 26.9 seconds. One thing I like to do is I actually utilize the 30% speed boost if I need to get going in a fraction of a time. It allows me to go from dead stop and gain that top speed, gain that acceleration that I'm missing essentially from the ship. That's one way I really like to utilize this speed boost. The other way is if I'm forced into an open gunboating kind of role, then I will go ahead and utilize the speed boost. Moving into the concealment, I believe I do have the concealment module listed, so I can't read it off here, but the standard detection by sea is tying that of the Tiger 59 at 11.3 kilometers. Again, with the module up on the ship, you get 10.2, and then with the commander skill, I believe it's 9.2 or 9.3 on the ship as well, which again is relatively stealthy. It's going to need that stealth in order to survive. But basically, guys, the Narai is adding all these tools, the Pan-Asian smoke screens, the 5.5 low-yang hydro, the plus 30% engine, emergency speed boost, high explosives. It's gaining all this stuff at the sacrificing or basically of the radar. That's the big thing, that the big trade-off between the two ships have. So in my honest opinion, I believe you are trading team utility in order to pick up more damage farming, a little bit more survivability and damage farming out of your main battery guns with the high explosive is basically what this ship adds. This ship, I don't really see it as competitive. I don't really see the Tiger 59 as competitive. Though if you can make that ship work, I mean, honestly, I tip my hat to you. But these ships are definitely a struggle bus to play, and I wouldn't say they're the most competitive. I really don't know why you would want to play this ship, so to speak, compared to other ships. And even if you're a fan of, let's say, Pan-Asian light cruisers, why would you play the Narai when, like, the Irian exists, for example? Like, I think the Irian is just vastly superior in more situations than the Narai could ever be. Yes, you're a tier 8 cruiser, you pick up a super heal, you have a smoke. I understand the thought process there, but actually in reality, when you apply what the ship has in game, it doesn't really bode too well for you, and I think the Irian is just going to be a flat out better choice than the Narai could ever be. So let's look at the upgrades now. For the upgrades in slot 1, I am taking main armaments modification 1. In slot 2, I'm going with engine room protection. In slot 3, I'm going with aiming systems modification 1. In slot 4, I'm going prop mod 1. And in slot 5, I'm taking concealment systems modification. I know one build that I did try was adding the smoke generator modification 1 into the third slot instead of aiming systems. For me, not worth it. You only have 4 guns, and even with the destroyer like dispersion, I want to make sure I'm landing all my shells on target as frequently as possible. And when I opted to utilize the smoke generator modification 1, I actually found myself missing a lot of shells and my dispersion being substantially worse, which is crazy when you crunch the numbers, right, and look at it. But it's something that I did notice, so I would highly recommend you just stick with the aiming systems and don't even look at the smoke generator modification 1. As you know, these are the tools. I already mentioned what you have. Pretty nice, honestly, from the specialized repair teams to this Pan-Asian smoke generator from the Low Yang style of hydroacoustic search, and then especially this engine, emergency engine power, which is plus 30%. One thing I have noticed is I will always prefer the Pan-Asian smoke screens to like standardized Royal Navy smoke screens. But I do notice that the dispersion time via the consumable action time, like these smoke screens don't last a whole long time, and with the consumable expert skill, whatever superintendent, you only get 3. I find myself flying through my 3 smoke screens relatively quickly, so it is another thing to make sure, and that could just be a skill issue on my part, but you have to make sure that you have a little bit more sense of when and where you should be deploying your smoke screens, proccing your engine boost, your hydro, and utilizing your heal, because even though you have all these consumables at your disposal, consumable management is going to be crucial when you're playing a ship like this. Yeah, guys, and that's basically the Narai from a port analysis standpoint. I will go over the commander build in game, but let's go ahead and dive right into some gameplay now, shall we? Alrighty, and here we are in battle with our Narai. I will go ahead and flash up the upgrades and commander skill that I will be utilizing. And I played around with quite a bit of some commander builds, and this is the one that to me worked the best in the most situations that I have found myself playing in the game, right? Obviously, this is one of the few ships that I do end up taking that 1 4-point skill that allows us to have or decrease our dispersion when more enemies are spotted within our main battery firing range than allies. It really allows this ship to make sure it's even more accurate, which is crucial for only a 4-gun ship, especially with a 4-gun ship that happens to be a cruiser that has access to a quite a big citadel. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the port analysis is the lack of torpedoes on this ship. Just like the Tiger 59, this is a massive disadvantage, especially for a ship like this. If you are a battleship, you would push basically without any fear into the Tiger 59 smokescreen, or where the Tiger 59 is hiding or concealing itself behind an island, because all it has is its guns, and its guns ain't gonna do anything basically to you unless you're incredibly low HP and are a bad shot. The Narai is basically the same thing. If you're a battleship and you see a Narai on your flank, I would say you're pretty much safe to go and push it, except now the Narai has a little trick up its sleeve, being in the forms that it has high explosives. So it can theoretically set you on fire, to fire. So again, it could put some strain on your damage control teams, right? Again, here's a good example of me utilizing the engine boost in order to dodge almost all the torpedoes but one. Again, I should have known better that the Scania would torpedo my smokescreen, but based upon where he's torpedoed, the torpedoes eventually went where I couldn't just fully reverse like I was planning on towards the island and thinking he would launch it towards the right side of my smoke. He actually launched it towards the middle, and then boom, I would end up taking up 1. Again, here when the engine boost is active, we're able to dodge a little bit more effectively, especially when we're going against a ship like the Roussillon, which is notorious for one-shotting potentially or sniping cruisers from across the map. And our Citadel is fair game for him too, so we have to tread with caution and doing what we can to just spam HE at maximum range, because as you can see, there are quite a lot of battleships here and a destroyer that's able to spot me, and my smoke screen is still on cooldown. I have noticed that the Pan-Asian smoke screens are up when you need it. The problem is is you only have 2 base on this ship, 3 with Superintendent, and I do find myself using pretty much all 3 within the first 5 to 8 minutes of the battle, which sucks because then you're basically down to island coverage and allies and their smoke screens if they have it. And it just creates a really bad problem with this ship. Usually cruisers have the stigma of being late game ships. You know, the later the battle goes, cruisers gain even more and more power, given the fact of their tools, DPM, that sort of stuff. But the Narai, for me, it just doesn't get really any more impactful than it already is at the beginning of the battle. Its impact is low, and towards the end of the battle, I would say it still remains relatively low. The team utility on this thing really just comes in the form of 2 things that I can find. One being that you could theoretically deploy a smokescreen for you and your allies if you're in a bit of a pinch. And the second one being that you do have that hydroacoustic search that could theoretically spot the roaming submarine, the destroyer sitting in smoke, what's sitting on the opposite side of the island, that sort of thing. But I don't find that my Narai is up in the forefront of the battles very often because I am just so scared, even of the blind fire, which battleships will do to you. So you have to make sure you're constantly maneuvering in your smokescreen forward, backwards, whatever it is, and make sure we're angling as well, because we don't want to remain a flat surface, because especially everyone should know about the spotter plane hack that battleships can do. They can pop their spotter plane, they can press the C key to kind of give them a little bit more of an aerial view and pinpoint right underneath where your shell tracers are and reliably land where they want to land on you, potentially even dev striking you if you're not careful. This is something we see a lot with smoke farming light cruisers, and I guess heavy cruisers now, as Wargaming has kind of added that into the mix. You have to stay mobile, and battleships will blind fire your smoke, so make sure you kind of remain angled in it too in case they happen to get lucky. Okay. Another thing with the Narai, which is quite nice, is the super heal. The super heal is going to allow you to have a little bit more survivability. That, coupled with your smoke screen, is going to translate to you theoretically being in the fight for longer. In my opinion, the super heal comes from it basically comes from the idea that you have to show a fair amount of broadside because you only have 2 turrets, so 4 guns. So more often than not, you're probably turning slightly out to the right or slightly out to the left in order to bear all 4 guns on the target. So I think it's there in order to keep you in the fight longer, so you can theoretically, not get out DPM by 1 turret you basically having 1 turret in the front and then the other ships just having basically 6 guns or 2 turrets in the front that is able to outtrade you. Yes, you have not bad, like your DPM isn't terrible for a tier 8 cruiser, especially being a light cruiser. The problem does just come in that you only have 4 guns, and that DPM won't reliably trade or outtrade other ships that you're going to be engaging, especially if you find yourself in a 1v1. You have your AP DPM, which is around 248,000, and I already mentioned your HE DPM is around 173,000. This thing actually has a little bit more AP DPM than that of the Tiger 59, though the Tiger 59 does pick up that short fused AP that most British light cruisers have, which again is a pretty big plus as well. Again, for me, like I already mentioned previously in the video, I think I'd rather just have HE because it's a little bit more of a universal ammo choice, and it's going to be more applicable in more situations, and it's just going to be potentially also adding into the fact that you can have damage over time by setting fires, which is nice. Another thing about this ship that I just simply can't stand, that I really don't understand from why anyone would really want to play this ship, is that the ship, in my opinion, doesn't really have that much in the forms of team utility. I already talked about that, you basically have to forego the radar that Tiger 59 has in order to pick up, various other consumables. I do think on average this ship is probably going to be a little bit easier to play than that of the Tiger 59, just because I think it's a little bit more friendly to the player, especially in the forms of random battles, asymmetrics, co-op, and all that kind of stuff. I think Tiger 59 was, this this ship that Wargaming had that was supposed to be incredibly strong potentially in the competitive scene, but it had to give up a lot, especially in the forms of DPM, in order to pick up that team utility. And I just think it really never really made out to be that competitive of a ship. And I'll see it every now and then, but the results that these players get on average, the Tiger 59 is just not the ship, guys. And I cannot not recommend that ship enough. That ship is just, like, it's just a bad ship. Don't even waste your time and resources and money to pick up the Tiger 59. And honestly, if you're not trying to get the Zurbati or whatever the hell it's called, the Zarya at tier, the next one in the Sarkuf salvage event at tier 9, which is like the Vladivostok, altered Vladivostok at tier 9. And especially if you're not getting the Sarkuf, there's just no reason to go up from the Kelowna to get this ship, in my opinion. That's kind of my final recommendation. It would be, don't even look at this ship unless you're going all in or you want the Zarya. I actually believe that the Kelowna is the true highlight of this Salvage for Victory event. I think it's actually surprisingly pretty damn strong if you know how to play her. Obviously, if you missed that video, I made a whole in-depth analysis review on that ship the other day. So why don't you go ahead and check that one out. But this one for me, guys, is a hard pass. I just don't see why you would take this thing into battle compared to other cruisers. Hell, I don't even care about the heal. I can play a cruiser that doesn't have a heal, but actually offers some sort of battle impact that the Narai just simply can't do. And that's probably the most frustrating for me. Now, obviously, the game I'm having in the background isn't a terrible game. You can still play well in certain said ship. I would like to believe I am a fairly good player. I'm not the best by any means, but I know my way around this game, so I can make the ship work. And if you find yourself in the same boat, meaning that you find yourself relatively close to the way I play or think, then yeah, obviously you can make this ship work. But for me, this ship is just going to be a bit of a hard pass. I just wouldn't. I can't sit here and recommend this ship to you guys because it's just not going to be a fun gaming experience, which is what we all want. I think we all want ships that are fun, strong, impactful, have something that has us wanting to go back to play. And for what the price would be for coal, I just can't fathom why would you want to spend that that coal price for her when you theoretically could buy other coal ships, right? Don't get duped into thinking you have to take advantage of this Sarkuf Salvage Victory event. Wargaming loves the whole FOMO shit. My biggest thing, though, from this whole event should be that within, 6 months after this event has run its course, I think they should add the 3 coal ships, or, theoretically ships that you can obtain before the Sarkuf. Add those into the armory for coal in a later date. The Kelowna for coal would be awesome. The Narai, I guess people would buy it if they're just collecting. And arguably the Zarya as well, or whatever you want to call that thing as well. Throw it in the armory for coal, why not? And then standardize it with the other coal prices we have. There you go, problem solved. That's 3 new ships added into the armory that people, at first glance, didn't want, and now maybe they could justify it based on the price. I mean, obviously everything is going to be slightly higher because Wargaming wants to theoretically drain your resources so that in the next wave of things, the whole cycle begins again where you're going to go buy doubloons or you got to regrind, get some more coal, save up, and then it's a thing they do because they know a lot of players sit on a shit ton of resources and they want to make sure they advertise it towards players that play the game frequently and a lot. Compared to when you could just spend doubloons on the ship, I think the Kitakami, if I'm not mistaken, you could 100% spend doubloons on, and people, what did they do? They went out and they just bought a metric fuck ton of doubloons, which is insane to me because, as we know, that ship is a one-trick pony and really not that impactful. And if I'm a destroyer, I hate to see that ship spawn on my flank because I know I'm getting 0 fucking support out of my cruiser. Okay, not to get sidetracked too much, I want to stick here on the Narai. As you can see, the Zarya, as it is, way more mobile than me and maneuverable. The second it gets out to longer ranges, this ship struggles to land its shells on target. 1, in part because it's pretty damn accurate, but also 2, because the shells are incredibly floaty. And as you see, I'm trying to dodge, so I'm basically just getting 1 turret to bear at a time and then trying to swivel, but by the time I swivel after I dodge, the next salvo's coming in from the Zarya, so it's really hard for me to justify trying to get another turret and continue this engagement. So what am I going to do? I'm going to fall off, utilize my 9.2 max conceal of the ship, and try to close the distance in that regard. That, I think, is probably the smartest thing you could do in this ship. One of those, that trigger discipline is going to play a huge role in trying to make the most out of this vessel, because early game, I think being at 16 kilometers, around 13 to 16 kilometers is understandable. I get it. But as the battle gets on, towards its later stages, you're going to have to inevitably close the distance more and more. Obviously, it depends on the scenario that you see during the game or whatever, things happen to present itself. But it all depends on you as the player, and you have to make the right read. Obviously, here, this game is close. This game could swing either way. I am going to still continue towards the Zara. We need to eliminate him from the game so the points can sway back in our favor, because, as you know, their Yutlin is playing very well and is actually just trying to capture the capture points rather than try to deal damage and hunt our Jaeger. So I have to tip my hat to that guy. He actually played pretty damn well this game. And thank God we were able to pick up the Zara. Now, obviously, the Takao here, which is a copy pasta Tago for a blue archive or whatever event, or arpeggio event, he's trying to torpedo first and put himself in a kind of position to get the distinct advantage, or wait till I turn broadside with potentially armor piercing that is loaded. I'm just going to fall off detection and, again, close the distance as much as possible, because I still think he is the bigger threat right now. And trying to go back all the way to, the A camp, and find the DD it's kind of a crapshoot, because he's going to outspot me and he could easily just run away from me, and it's really not going to do much. So I made a conscious decision here that I'm going to continue to go after the Takao. Again, the Takao is a great ship. I think the Takao is better than the Narai. But again, if you have support in your cruiser, you can make this thing work. Plus, you could theoretically stay in the fight longer because the Takao has a longer reload at 16 seconds base. With my DPM, I can stay in the fight longer if I min-max it with my specialized repair teams, and I continue to actively maneuver and potentially dodge his salvos. That is one thing that is huge. I think all of us can do a better job at doing that, is making sure we pick the right spots. Now, obviously, he is kited away. He is turning away. So I'm going to open up with my guns and start the farming fiesta. Now, this thing wants to be a farmer, and I think it can do a decent job at doing that. The problem is, again, like I've mentioned earlier on in this video, and I mentioned it again later, not so far or long ago, you only have 2 turrets, you only have 4 guns, and I think this ship has me craving more. I think that's the biggest thing I can tell you, is that from a cruiser commander, a cruiser player, I want a little bit more, and this ship just doesn't offer that to me because it only has 2 turrets, one in the nose, one in the ass. Yeah, it picks up the heal. Yeah, it has the smoke, it has the hydro, it has the speed boost, which is actually quite nice, by the way. But still, it's just not enough. I mean, the Tiger 59 kind of whole design is just kind of meh anyways, and I just don't really see myself going back and wanting to play this ship unless I want to prove to myself that I can get an E rank in her, and then really trying to be sweaty try hard and trying to do that, which we're trying to do here. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this was a pretty damn good game. I think we end up getting pretty damn high base XP earned. The only problem is that because not a lot of people are playing the ship, or not a lot of people are, that proficient in her, or the small amount of people that have obtained her are doing really incredibly well with her, especially when they're getting up tiered into tier 10 games, so they're getting that like ×2 modifier. That's why you have to get so incredibly high on the base XP in order to get the E rank. Obviously, there was a Citadel. It can happen. Your armor piercing isn't terrible. The threshold is the 0.025 millimeter or whatever penetration to get the AP to fuse, which obviously is not like the short AP that you see, or the short fused AP like you see on the Tiger 59, which is the 0.005 second fuse time. This is the 0.025 second fuse time. So it's going to need to penetrate a little bit more armor like the Takao there in order to potentially fuse inside and detonate within the Citadel. The penetration is a little bit better, obviously, with the Tiger 59. I think at where we were at 10 kilometers on that ship, it is about 142 millimeters of effective AP penetration. I do find myself switching to AP if I find myself at close ranges and I can chunk broadsides, but I'm really rarely aiming Citadel. I think that shell just happened to go towards a Citadel. I think I was trying to aim more upper deck because I'm looking for more of those raw penetration values, which is going to translate more, rather than a crapshoot of maybe will I Citadel this thing, maybe will I not Citadel this thing, is what it really comes down to. Another thing about this ship is, I believe both ships do have the airstrike. Thank God, neither have the depth charges. It's not like we want to handicap this ship anymore, so you do have that aspect, and you can help out your allied destroyers and your allied submarines by dropping depth charges on on the enemy subs, right? Which is going to be huge. That is nice. I do find myself as, especially in tier 8 games, going against a lot of enemy submarines. So having that up my, in my repertoire is actually pretty nice. Also, that coupled with that 5.5 kilometer surface detect on the hydroacoustic search, plus just having a hydro in general for the 2 kilometer base detection of the enemy submarines is always a nice addition, right? All right, my final thoughts on the Narai. Unless you are going for the Sarkouf or you want the Zarya to do the Salvage for Victory event, this is just an absolutely no-go of a ship, in my opinion. Unless you are a die-hard Tiger 59 fan or just a collector, I really don't see why you'd want to get this ship. There are just other tier 8 cruisers that are just vastly more superior, vastly more fun, and even if you want to go around the nation, like I've already mentioned, the Irian for the Pan-Asian nation is just way more fun and I think better and more impactful. But with this thing, you do have the heal, you do have the engines boost, you do have the smoke. I understand the draw, and this thing really lives and dies based upon its consumable management and positioning. If you can manage those two things, I think you can get decent results out of the Narai. But anything you get in the Narai, you could probably do twice as easy on other tier 8 cruisers. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this review. Stay tuned for more, and I will be doing my best to trickle out content to y'all. So in the meantime, have a good one, guys, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Have a good rest of your day, and peace out.